Oi, aqui é o Vash e hoje eu trago um vídeo especial de 1 hora com a última sessão de perguntas e respostas da Blizzard legendada. Como sempre, eu espero que gostem e se gostarem deem um like, se inscrevam no canal e marquem as notificações para não perder os próximos vídeos. E vamos às perguntas.
Hey everybody! My name's Brandy Camel. I'm your community manager for Diablo, and joining me today are two of our developers from the team. I've got on my left Travis Day, one of our senior game designers.
How you guys doing?
And then of course on my right I have Julian Love, our lead effects artist.
How you doing?
So today, if you've seen some of our notices about what we're talking about today, is we gathered up a whole bunch of questions from you guys about the Necromancer. Now that it's out in closed beta, people have gotten their hands on the class sets, and they've really been testing them to their heart's extent, right, as much as possible.
That's true, yeah.
And we've all been reading through all your guys' feedback, chatting back and forth about all of it, and I think we've got some really interesting questions to go over today, so we can just jump on into it if you guys are ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, then let's get to it. Our first question...
Yeah, I think this is going to take all of us to answer because none of us can remember all the pieces. But we know we're gonna ship with 2 character slots, 2 stash or more stash tabs.
Yeah, two
stash
Two
tabs.
stash tabs, yeah.
And let's see, we've got a pennant, we've got
Banner.
There's a pet.
Yeah.
There's a pet.
And
Yep.
wings.
Yeah,
And
there you go.
Wings.
Yep.
Is that all?
I think there's also a portrait frame.
Portrait frame.
Oh,
Okay.
I forgot about that one.
Yep.
There we are.
Okay,
So I think that's all of the cosmetics.
excellent.
So, but yeah, and then of course Necromancer will have all of the sort of the same access that other characters have. So they will have their own set of set dungeons. They'll have 4 class sets. So there's parity there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So all right, our next question.
Oh, let's see. Well, a lot of the Necromancer's kit is based on the idea of blood and bone, and we feel like the best damage type for that is going to be physical. That's not really an element, so to speak, but it is a damage type. That takes up the majority of the kit, and that leaves us with 2 other elements that we felt fit the fantasy of the class, that being cold, and the other one ended up being poison. Poison is the damage type that we decided to that fit best with our blight theme.
All right. Okay, and it looks like, I have like totally completely derped on this one. So there isn't any sound when the questions are up, and that's my fault because I didn't set the scenes up correctly. So hopefully we didn't lose out too much because it's pretty much just me reading the questions. I think that's literally all people have missed.
Okay.
But this is my fault, so give me 1 second. This is not going to be super easy for me to fix live, so...
Doing it live, folks.
Yep. This is how you know it's live, because I always mess something up. Audio... Which one? Okay, audio input. Let me add this, because I'm going to have to do that on every question now.
Oh, no.
All right, so we're just going to go ahead and move on to the next one. I know you guys are saying that it's a little bit quiet. Part of that is because of the microphones that we have aren't really well suited for this format, so we'll try to speak up a little bit louder so that you guys can hear us a bit clearer. Sorry about that. We'll go ahead and move on to the next question. This should work now with the sound. The interaction between Land of the Dead, Corpse Lands, and the Plague set. Was this intended, and if so, doesn't it make Bone Spear moot? I've actually seen this question quite a lot.
Yeah, so it was intended. It was not intended to be used the way that creative players discovered they could use it. So we are going to address some of the degenerate or abusive cases where you can do things that we didn't really plan to do. But that's why we have PTR. Like, we have PTR because there's way more of you than there are developers, and y'all are way smarter than we are when it comes to finding things like this. So we're going to address that. And Bone Spear is awesome. Like, Bone Spear with that set's really good. Some of the stuff that's happening right now might overshadow it depending on the situation because, again, it's not intended to function that way, but we're going to fix it.
All right, cool. So we've got some changes coming there. Let's see, our next question. Will there be a Blood Mage Dracula type of Necromancer build? This would be fun to maintain HP and skills. Boy, do we have a set for you.
Yeah, there absolutely will be. I don't know, you may not have seen it already, but in the beta there's the Blood Necromancer set. It's very reminiscent of like just the full red armor from was it Bram Stoker's Dracula, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's very reminiscent of that. But yeah, there's a lot of blood magic. The set is built around spending your health and recuperating your health and increasing your health. So we tied very heavily into the health mechanic for that set.
All right, then. Next one. Was there a lot of internal debate about the skills with X% chance to instantly kill enemy below Y% HP?
No, there wasn't. There really wasn't. We did not do that mechanic much. I think we did it in like one place with execution. It's really just a cool thematic. The monster has to be pretty low health. The chance that it happens is relatively low because the expectation is you're doing it on a lot of creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So through a certain lens, it's not a lot different than just if you'd done something that increased your damage to the monster in the first place. And then the only other mechanic that works that way is frailty. And frailty is not a chance; it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the mob has less health, which is very similar to the mobs dying faster and taking more damage.
Right. So our next one is what was the thought behind the pet set? It seems really cool, but it dictates many of your skills going against the freedom that you wanted.
Yeah. So the set. Okay. Giving the sets as much freedom as humanly possible was one of our goals for certain amongst the group. We wanted the sets to be really open-ended, not dictate too many skills on your bar. The pet set's kind of the exception. We did make sure we didn't force you to have all of the pet skills on your bar. You could theoretically, I'm not going to use the Golem because I think Bone Armor is really good for survivability, or maybe I'm not going to use Revive because man, Devour is so awesome. So it's pretty loose. It really does incentivize you to use all the pet skills, but at the same time, it's the core fantasy for the class. It's all about being the commander of the dead and having this massive army. So we kind of said, like, okay, if we're gonna say use all your pets, you're gonna use all your pets, and
right.
that's what this class is all about. So, but I think there'll still be some interesting builds that evolve over time, and as players see more of the items.
I think this is actually kind of a good follow-up question in terms of the fantasy for class sets. Are there any new skill sets for a type of melee mancer like in Diablo 2? Thanks for the question, MF Boom.
Yeah, we've got Grim Scythe and the Nova skills and a bunch of passes and things that feed into that. A lot of the Blood set, or is it the Blood set or is it the...
It's a Saint
set.
Yeah.
The Saint
set,
set
yeah.
Works that way. It's definitely geared towards a melee man survive. We definitely talked a lot about that and focused on that as a fantasy that we wanted to bring back, that we knew that a lot of Necromancer players were into. So, yes.
All right. Looking forward to that. Let me tack this on here real quick. And our next question comes from Syed Zaris. If our Xbox account is linked to our Blizzard account, will we be able to have the Necromancer across both platforms? Will we need to purchase one for one PC and one for console? So I can actually answer that question pretty quickly. They are separate products, just like the Ultimate Evil Edition on PC is separate from Diablo 3 and Reaper of Souls. From console, back and forth. I think I got those backwards. But point is, they are separate products, so yes, you will need to purchase the Necromancer separately if you are playing on both platforms.
That is way better an answer than I would have given.
Yeah?
Mine would have been, I just make art, man. I don't know. Yeah.
It's one of the few things that I do happen to know in working with marketing and PR and all of those other wonderful departments. So our next one comes from SVR. And they ask, the Necromancer has 3 curses. Why is it that none of these curses have a rune that is a direct damage amplification towards party members?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we were designing the curses, we really went back and looked at a lot of the old Diablo 2 curses, and sort of a running theme on them was like, this increases your damage in some slightly varied way. We wanted the curses in D3 to be more succinct, more clear, and have purity of purpose. Like, this is the curse for making me not die. This is the curse for healing people. This is the curse for killing things. So part of that was we have frailty. Curse of Frailty is basically a damage amp, but it's a very generous and interesting way to present a damage increase. And then the runes, largely across the class at whole, we tried to avoid runes that just say, like, here's 4 runes that do something kind of neat, and then a 5th one that does more damage. Because generally that just means the rune choices aren't interesting. You take the thing this is the better version of it, and the rest of these don't matter. So we wanted all the runes for the skills to feel either more utilitarian or more gameplay defining. Functionally, though, Frailty is a damage amp. It's a damage increase for everyone. You curse the enemies with it, for those of you that haven't played with it. And while they're affected by it, when their health reaches a certain threshold, they just die. They fall over dead. Curse Frailty, I'm frail, I die. So we thought that was a cooler way to implement the old school amplified damage curse. That had more flavor to it, but functionally is an amplified damage curse.
All right. Let's see. Our next one comes from Desmephisto. Will there be a melee thorn pet build for Necros?
I can talk about it.
Yeah, you talk.
So one of the original curses actually from Diablo 2 that used to see some play, and people asked a lot about early in development, was Iron Maiden. We didn't want to make Iron Maiden a curse, mostly because thorns in our game is not the same as thorns in Diablo 2. Monster AI dictates sometimes it's not even attacking you, and then you're just standing around waiting for stuff to happen. But we did think, well, some people really do like that, so let's add some hooks in place so that people who like that playstyle can have that, or if you just want a bunch of minions tanking and you're stacking thorns and they're dying, that's cool. So there's some passives that support that. There's one that gives your minions 200% of your thorns. We've also, excuse me, we were also made a legendary recently that any curse will increase your thorns damage based on the number of enemies that are cursed. So you can kind of start putting together a pet-centric thorns build that's got some support to it. But we didn't want to push it too hard because thorns has always been really tricky to get right in D3.
Okay. So options, all kinds of options.
All the time.
Each class has a 2-piece weapon set. Do you plan to give a weapon offhand set to the Necromancer? Thanks, Colt.
Yeah, so there's one coming in the next patch for the PTR. That is a main hand scythe offhand shield. Necros aren't really about shields, but it's such iconic artwork that we were just like, we got to get this in the game somehow. And the scythe and the shield both really matched the aesthetic of the pet set, like the bone look, which is very iconic Necromancer. So it's themed around that set, but anyone could use it. It's just really good 2-piece bonus for Army of the Dead. You'll see it soon.
Awesome. So this one, how will you address the issue that the season in which the Necro is released will be full of players playing just the Necro?
We plan to address that by throwing a big party, watching everybody play the Necro, and feeling really good about it. Yeah, we don't really see that as a problem when you release a new class and everybody wants to play it. If that's how it turns out, then that's success. You did your job well. That's what we expect to happen. We have also built some new things into the class to make that probably not an unenjoyable experience for everybody. Obviously, if you're not into the Necro, maybe you won't feel that enjoyable, but the fact that we've done some things to kind of curtail the way the graphics will work for all of your fellow party members should make it work pretty well, and that I think we'll have 4 Necromancers on screen, and it's going to be great.
Looking forward to that. Necro parties all the way around. All right. Does resource cost reduction reduce the health cost of blood skills, since health is a resource for Necromancers? Thanks, Link.
That's a good question, actually. As recently as this week, I was actually confused about what we had decided to do with this. So I originally thought we were like, yeah, let's make RCR affect health costs. We did not. And then I had a conversation with someone recently, and we were talking through like, oh, I thought we did. Okay, well, let's. What would it affect if we did implement that change? And we started talking through the consequences or the expectations or some interactions we didn't like, oh, but these items say when a resource is spent, blah, blah, blah. So does that work on the Necro? Does it work if they take damage? What if reasons? And the short version is we talked it all through. We were really close to making that change, but there were some really concerning consequences of that change that we didn't feel comfortable with. So ultimately, RCR doesn't reduce the health costs of Necromancer skills.
So it does for essence, just not for
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
blood skills.
Yeah, it works on your essence, which is your primary resource.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't work if you're using blood skills that also have a health cost associated with them.
Gotcha. All right. Our next one needs an audio feed. This is how you know we're live. Just finished a D2 playthrough as a Necromancer. What are the class-specific weapon and offhand, and are there any throwbacks to D2? So we've answered this before. I think we showed these off. But
yeah, so the class-specific weapon that we have is Scythe, and it's a two-handed Scythe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, and the offhands are phylacteries. So now, there's maybe a little bit of how did we get there, and why are they that way? So one of the things here is that we really wanted to, we didn't want to bring back wands, obviously, for the Necromancer because the wizard has wands.
has them already, right?
Right, so we weren't going to do that. And also, you know, it's just, I think we should admit, we didn't really think that wands were necessarily the most thematically suited item for the class either. We wanted something a little more edgy. Scythes really seemed like a total, like, win. Malthael uses scythes.
Right.
He's kind of
Angela
deadish.
Death,
Yeah,
and-
totally. And then for the offhands, we kind of had a similar kind of problem in that even though the Witch Doctor doesn't exactly have an offhand that's called Shrunken Heads, a lot of the stuff ended up being kind of Shrunken Heads. And if you think about shrinking heads, it's very Witch
Very
Doctor-y.
Witch Doctor, yeah.
So even though Shrunken Heads appeared in D2, it didn't feel like a great fit for us here, and so the notion of phylacteries seemed to ring true. So now, with those decisions in place, it makes it a little hard to bring some of those item fantasies from D2 forward into that particular space, simply because it feels very disingenuous, or maybe almost dishonoring, to take a fantasy that belonged to a wand in D2 and pull it forward and stick it on a scythe. It might be really difficult to do fantasy-wise, but also just doesn't feel like the right thing to do in terms of honoring Diablo 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, letting those items live their legacy, right?
Yeah, they are awesome the way they are, and if we can't do them justice, then we shouldn't just bring them forward.
All right, this is kind of a fun question. The Golem's pretty similar to the Gargantuan, so who would win in a brawl?
My money's on the Gargantuan or the Golem.
The Golem?
Because he's cooler and bigger. He's like the Hulk. Very bulky.
The counter to that, though, might be if you're wearing Tall Man's Finger, then it would be 3 Gargantuans on 1 Golem, right? And
right.
Like that could be a really unfair set of circumstances.
But what if you take the Flesh Golem and then you revive him into the 8 little Flesh Golems?
See, yeah.
Then it's 8 on 3.
This is a really hard thing to answer. You all might have to find out on your own, like
Right.
how this really ends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But also, pets don't take any damage in Diablo, so,
So-
I'd probably call it a stalemate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably just lasts forever.
Yeah, more or less.
For
More or
quite a
less.
while.
Yeah.
It's perpetual motion.
It'll be like the chat jam.
Right. All right, our next one. Can we please talk about how the Necromancer's abilities and rune choices cost health? This idea is very awesome and welcome, but I'm playing hardcore and I feel like this limits my options and skill builds. Things get kind of scary. Oh, I play hardcore as well, so I understand this feel.
Well, 2 things. 1, you're braver than me if you're playing hardcore. 2, you're way braver than me if you're using blood skills in hardcore. So, no, to be fair, there are a lot of skills on the Necromancer. In fact, there's basically at least a rune, I think, on most every, if not all, the skills that are blood-themed, that have a health cost associated with them. Some of them are kind of a nominal, like this isn't that big a deal. Some of them really are going to chunk your health bar down. There's also a lot of blood-themed skills that are about healing. So maybe you don't want to use like your primary spender as a blood skill. You probably don't want to use Blood Nova because also then you have to be in close proximity, and that's just a recipe for disaster for hardcore. The flip side of that is you can get some really good health regen stuff going from the other blood skills. There's the bone armor rune that increases your health regen per enemy affected. There's obvious stuff like Blood Siphon or the Blood Rune on Scythe. I would not push Simulacrum if I were you.
That seems pretty dangerous.
You know, that said, there is also stuff like Rathma Shield where, hey, maybe you really like Simulacrum. Just take that passive, get 4 seconds of invulnerability when you push the button. Everything's gravy. But yeah, it was meant to be a very high-risk, high-reward playstyle. It's certainly not well-suited for hardcore. The upside is that because there's so much health-costing stuff in there, you've got a lot of really good tools at your disposal to keep yourself alive, too. So maybe just take the healing side of the blood skills and very sparingly use the health cost skills.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us who were maybe played Diablo 2 a lot, you might remember the late rage of playing naked sorceresses.
Oh,
right?
Yep.
And in hardcore, because that was the only way you could really prove yourself. I think for me, this is the return of that idea where you're going to be absurdly disadvantaged, but still manage to find your way through. So I plan on spending a lot of time with this build in hardcore.
In hardcore?
Yeah.
All right. I'll have to watch that on Notice My Feed.
Yeah, I'll probably name my character Naked
Sorcerer.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Our next one comes from Ajira69. Can we expect items that increase our army size or make our minions more permanent?
Yeah, so we don't have any items that explicitly increase the caps or take timered minions and make them permanent. We do have several items coming in the next PTR that will allow you to either more quickly reach those caps, extend the duration of things, but not to indefinite. There's an item that lets you effectively double the potential duration of Simulacrum, things like that. So there are certainly going to be items coming soon that you guys can use that will affect your pets in some way, but not permanent, and the caps that are in place are the caps so that we don't break everything, including your computer.
That's very important. You do want to be able to actually get stuff done.
Play the game?
Yeah, play the game. That's kind of part of it.
A little bit.
Just a bit. All right. The next question comes from Cult. Plague set seems really lackluster in comparison to the other sets at the moment. Are there any plans to add other skills like Bone Spirit to the 6-piece bonus?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to start off on this one by saying the set balance right now on the PTR is wildly disparate. We're very aware. This is also what the PTR is for, is to help us find these things and go like, oh, okay, well, we have to fix this, and this isn't good enough, and this is too good. So there's been a lot of that going on lately. The Plague set has some really, really powerful items coming that'll help make it more powerful. We're not adding Bone Spirit explicitly to that set for any reason. But there will be items that make Bone Spirit a lot more powerful. So if you like Bone Spirit, which I do, I think it's freaking amazing. There are items that you can either equip or put into your cube that are going to make it a lot more potent.
Cool. Certainly going to see some stuff shake up next week once we add in all those items.
Oh yeah,
so.
Everything's going to be on fire. We're going to have to fix all kinds of stuff that's way too good.
All the things.
Or bad.
Have you considered the place of the Necromancer in the 4-man and 3-man and 2-man Greater Rifts?
Yeah, we get this question a lot, it seems like.
Yeah.
So when we set out to design the Necromancer, at no point were we like, okay, what is their job in a 4-man rift? What skills are we going to give them to reinforce that job? We really just were like, all right, what would be cool? What do you expect the Necromancer to have? All right, you expect pets, you expect curses, cool, let's do that. You got some golems in there, sweet, corpse explosion. We did give them a lot of really robust tools. The curses are really potent, so it's very easy to picture land where people like bringing Necros for a more support role. They also have some incredible DPS potential with some of their sets, so it's possible they could fill a damage role. Some of the new items give them a lot of utility, so they could be in more of a CC role. Don't really know, but I think they're theoretically capable of all the jobs, and it's really up to you guys to figure out what you think they're best at or what you enjoy playing them as the most.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see just where exactly they're going to emerge. I know that's not something that we designed for, but it's just always really intriguing to see, culturally, how people end up building their groups out.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different playstyles in our game, and really the players determine what those are. We just give you, cool spells, cool items, cool sets. We let you guys figure out what you feel works best for those classes. I mean, as designers, at no point are we ever like, what's the ZDPS setup for this guy? Because that's not really a thing that we're like, oh man, not doing damage is the most fun ever. How can we make sure you don't do damage? But some builds of some classes find ways to make that the most effective way to serve their group. And ultimately, that's cool. As long as you guys are having fun, you're playing with friends, you find something that works for you. More power to you. Right? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a game. It's up to you guys how you want to play it and what you find fun.
Cool. This one comes from another one of our beta testers specifically. I'm having really severe survivability issues, especially with the melee specs, but also as a summoner. Can we expect some items that address this?
No. We really want you to be squishy. No, this came up a lot, actually. I was watching a lot of streamers doing like high-level griffs over the last PTR. They're certainly squishy in some of the sets, in certain higher griffs. We designed tools for the class, like, hey, like you've got bone armor, you've got decrepify. Hopefully these, can find a place on your bar if you ever feel like your survivability is not enough. That said, we have really aggressive damage scaling at the really high end. Right. We certainly do not want that to be the case. I believe when we were sitting in our item design meeting, my opinion on the subject of survivability legendaries was, yeah, just give them as many as we can think are cool, and it's better that they have too many than not enough, so that players can then sort of hone in on what's the right balance for their playstyle. We've got some really, really strong survivability legendaries that are coming for them. One of them is, which seems super simple, but is really powerful for like the Saint set or just any Necromancers, is your bone armor stacks up to 15 instead of 10. As a side note, we also are changing the way bone armor works so that it doesn't work like the old Soul Harvest and instead just stacks and refreshes. So if you hit 5 guys, you get 5 stacks. If you hit 4 more, now you're at 9. So some things like that, also just minor tweaks to baseline skills, will help improve the survivability as well.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to that bone armor change.
Yeah, me too.
That should be really fun. Let's see, our next one needs an audio line. And comes from iCrate.s. Are there any skills you're currently unhappy with and are considering reworking during the beta phase?
For the most part, we're really happy with how the stuff turned out. There's 2 really big outliers. One is Blood is Power. The passive, for anyone that hasn't used it or doesn't know what it does, it's for every 5% health you lose or spend, it refreshes all of your cooldowns by 1%. For months, people would come to me and be like, man, this thing doesn't seem good enough. And my response was usually, they're going to break it. I'm not making it better. This is probably too good to ship already. Even though none of us know how to break it, they're going to break it. Right. And sure enough, in the most recent PTR, we have people going like, I'm pushing Grift 102 with like all the vitality off my gear, and I'm permanently invincible, and blah, blah, blah. Like, oh my god, okay, we have to fix that. Right. So just this week, actually, we were working on a redesign for that passive. The only other one that really stands out, again, into like, this is terribly broken, it's largely due to Blood is Power, but it's just, we just messed up, and we forgot to do something we normally do with our skills, which is, we have a rune on bone armor where it turns it, instead of being a mitigation tool, it turns it into a temporary invulnerability skill, kind of like Serenity, but with a longer cooldown. In our game, across the board, if you have a button that makes you invulnerable, we do not start cooling down the skill until the invulnerability expires, to make sure you are never allowed to have 100% uptime on invulnerability. We just forgot to do that for the bone armor rune, so that, coupled with Blood is Power, coupled with things like Obsidian Ring, people were getting permanent immunity. So both of those things we'll see addressing soon. In the next PTR, they're fixed, actually.
Okay, very cool. That will be really interesting to see some of our like hardcore testers go through and try all that stuff out. All right, from an iteration point of view, how was it to develop Bone Spirit from its previous form to the new improved one? And are there any plans to add it to the 6-piece bonus? Man, people really want it on the Plague set.
Yeah, it's an awesome skill.
It is a really awesome skill.
I love Bone Spirit. It makes sense to a lot of my builds.
It's definitely one of my favorites. Just being able to reliably explode somebody with one click. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Well, we had a lot of clarity, when we started in terms of the role it was going to play, and it didn't change too much in terms of that role. But we also knew that it was a pretty big, iconic skill from Diablo 2 and deserved a lot of attention in terms of just being thematically awesome. We also didn't want to repeat what had happened in Diablo 2 exactly, or really that much at all, because we felt like it was, okay, that's what you did in the Days of Sprites, but we should be able to do something way cooler. If you think about the words bone, spirit, I think that for us evoked something really more fantastic. So we went through a lot of iterations on it. One version, we thought, well, maybe it's like death a little bit from Gauntlet, if you remember. Like he kind of walks around with his finger pointed
Pointed
you know,
at
like
you,
that's
yeah.
kind of scary. Maybe we could get that. There's a problem with that when it is effectively a projectile, and when a projectile has a very, very long shape, its contact position, you have to make a decision as to where that is. And long story, it just made it really not feel very good in terms of it would kind of run halfway through a monster before it exploded. So then we dropped back to another version, or versions closer than we have right now. But we were playing around with the different animations, like how could we get it to animate in a more lively way. And it ended up kind of like it had a spawn animation rather than just coming out the way it does. And it sort of made it look like the spirit was swimming, like in like a race or something.
Right.
It was like doing like the dog paddle. Neat idea, but
it just kind of didn't.
It just made it kind of humorous, and
Right.
we didn't want that. And so after just trying out all those different ideas, we settled back down into something that's a little bit more tame, but what you see today in the game. So just trimmed out some of the crazy that wasn't working and focused down on the stuff that does.
Cool. All right, our next one. This is another one from Call T. Submitted a couple pretty good questions. Decay Golem is cool, but how do you plan, or do you plan to give us a tracker on how many corpses the Golem has consumed?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. There's currently no plan. For those of you that don't know what Decay Golem is, it's the Golem that you activate it, like all your Golem skills. It's got a cooldown. You can activate it. When you activate the Decay Golem, it rushes to a location, consumes all the corpses, and then gets a buff and does like a ton more damage. And the basic idea for that was people constantly were like, I want to Voltron corpses, and we're like, all right, well, what if your Golem, like, imagine he's like piling more corpses on him and murdering people. We talked about a buff stacker on it. We decided against it. We didn't really see the need for it. Like, he's going to hit harder. It's irrelevant. There's no gameplay. There's no interaction there. It's got a 1 minute cooldown, so it's not like you even can use it more often to refresh it, or there's just no interaction that made you need to know how much better he is. Like, you push the button, he's better, he's going to kill things. And we just wanted to keep the UI clean on it.
All right. Our next one comes from MF Boone. How many pieces of Necromancer-only equipment will there be? Will they have some type of armor made specifically for them, like Mighty Belts for Barbarians, or the Voodoo Mask for Witch Doctor?
The short answer is 2. Well, 3 if you count one hand, two-handed. So they have Scythes, which is the class weapon, and they have Phylacteries, which is the class offhand. I remember when we were making the decision way early in development about, like, well, what about class armor? Like, what is his class armor piece? I was very much of the opinion that, like, Mighty Belts don't really add anything to the game. Like, my Barbarian isn't cooler because he's got a belt on, and the fact that it's a class-specific belt just means that it's more items that other people don't see dropping. Like, what's the point of this? It's a belt is a belt. The Mighty Belt does nothing inherently. So we decided against giving him any kind of class-specific armor piece for that reason.
All right, then. So the next one, this has been a very popular question, is could we possibly see any of the Necromancer sets get a 7th piece to allow combining the set bonuses via Ring of Royal Grandeur? Thank you, Malachor.
This question, oh man, I get this question so often. So, no, but, so this question comes, yeah, no, I mean, so this question comes up a lot, and we've talked internally extensively about this thing, this concept or this idea of like, stacking sets. And I'm going to just talk designer for a minute. Generally, when we get this kind of question, the way we interpret it is, okay, so they want to find a way to get a mechanic in the game that will let them be more powerful. Like, that's ultimately the expectation of I'm wearing multiple sets is, because that's better than one set, right? Obviously, 2 sets is better than 1 set, duh. But it also ends up causing lots of... I love interactions. I love players finding things we didn't expect. I think in the case of like stacking all the set bonuses, really they're meant to feel powerful and interesting and different, and they just kind of start melding together when you're wearing multiple at a time. So a goal for the Necromancer has been to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen. But the goal is that they're still as strong as any other class in the game, which means whatever they're doing with 2 or 1.5 sets, you'll just be doing. Like, your items will be, if they need to be, better than other people's, like on a set-by-set bonus basis, because you get one set. Like, pick a set you like, roll with it. The same is true for the weapons and all the other items. So we have no plan of adding 7th pieces. Question comes up all the time, like, can we get an amulet? What if you put a helmet in this, or not a helmet, like some other piece in the set? And people are just asking because, like, they want us to put that in there, because then they're immediately just going to be like, haha, I gotcha.
Right.
Like, 2 sets now.
All right, then. Our next one comes from... One moment. There we go. Comes from Pash. The class feels really locked into a generator spender corpse skill build style. Are there any plans to shake that up?
This is another one that people ask about a lot. I know even internally I used to just have to tell people over and over and over, like, there's not going to be passive generation on this class. And not just from some reason of, like, because we said so. It's like we tried it and it, like, made the gameplay fall apart in ways we didn't like. So we've made a very conscious effort to make sure that generators and spenders are part of the core of the class, and that you are doing these 2 things at different rates. And also, corpses are a resource that you're generating, so then you're using them. We tried to design the skills accordingly, though, like knowing that you had multiple things that you had to keep up with. So like the Necromancer resource generators generate a lot of resource really fast. In some cases, like Grim Scythe, like 2 attacks in the middle of a pack and your bar's more than full. Same with the corpse skills. We tried to make it easy to consume many corpses at once, and if you just didn't want to deal with it, you've got things like Devour, where you just push a button, all the corpses on the screen are gone. Alternatively, one of the ones that our guys love internally to tell me is way cooler than the rest, even though I don't agree, is the Devour Aura, because then they're like, I don't even have to push a button now. I'm like, that's cool. But you do have to run to the corpse, so it's not all upside. Like, there is a cost associated with that. But yeah, the desire to have builders and spenders and corpse skills just always be part of the class is very deliberate. And there are some exceptions. Like, if you're doing easy, like, bounty clear content, you could probably take the builder off your bar and just run Devour. Right. And if you're running the Plague set, you probably don't need anything but Devour. You just, like, run screen to screen, pushing Devour and, like, cascading corpse lances forward, and everything's dead, and all you gotta do is push Devour over and over, and that's fine. But for any kind of, like, high-level gameplay, or, like, grift pushing or 4-man co-op groups, you certainly are going to want a builder and a spender. Probably a corpse skill, because the intent is that they're just really powerful, so why would you leave money on the table? Like, look at all those corpses on the table. Right. I gotta spend them. So yeah, working as intended. Very much so.
Very cool. The next one is, what legendary items for the Necromancer are you most excited about, and why? And what has been the most fun to work on so far? From Norman's vlog.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
I'm trying to remember.
Right.
Sorry, my brain just went blank because we just finished getting all of them in this week, and we had a lot of brainstorms in the last couple weeks. So my brain just melted.
And we don't know the names of them.
I don't.
Yeah, they don't have, like, final names.
Yeah, I'm like, I
yet,
think this one was a boot. Maybe it was a ring, or no. Well, it wasn't a ring. The rings are bonkers good. But my current favorite that we just put in is a ring. And it is kind of insane, and I'm kind of worried about how awesome it is. But it's a ring that whenever you cast a curse, whenever a curse affects an uncursed enemy, it takes all of the enemies that were affected by the curse and pulls them to the center of where you cast the curse. So it's like ranged targeted Cyclone Strike on a legendary for your curses. I was doing that with the Saint set, and then I was using the bone armor that stuns guys when I cast it, and then we added I think it's another ring or a weapon where your bone skills deal a ton of extra damage to stunned enemies. So I would, like, grip them all together with the curse, bone armor with the bone set, which did a ton of damage and stunned them, and then I'd hit my bone nova, which did like 200% bonus damage to them because they were stunned, and then they were inside my whirlwind of death, so that got some more like it was bonkers, like just absolutely bonkers.
That sounds fantastic. I want to play with that now. But you, Julian?
Oh yeah. So yeah, there's a hat. That's the thing. We have to call it that hat, that ring, that boot.
You're right. Cause we don't know their names yet.
So there's a hat that, or helmet, right? That when you revive a monster or a bunch of monsters, instead of getting a bunch of the monsters from all the corpses, what happens is all of those corpses generate one single badass revive that is made more powerful by the number of corpses that you use to create it. So that you can, and I think it's like 100 and something additional percentage damage.
Like, it's a big
per
number.
corpse, yeah, it's a really big
number. It's ridiculous. So you can make these really, really insane revives, and then of course, comboing that with other skills that purposely generate more corpses, like the revive that dies and leaves a corpse, and then the skeletal mages that also generate corpse. So now you've got all this corpse generation, and then all that's feeding this ridiculous revive mechanic. That, and for a pet player, that's like
right. Yeah, that's like awesome. A dream.
It also makes like Land of the Dead really compelling for revive, which normally it's not. But when you can make like 10 super powerful revives, like
oh man, that's
it's
crazy.
not easy to get 100 corpses normally.
Right.
But if you can just be like, boop, I got 10 of these,
awesome.
and then
I didn't
just
even
destroy
think about
it.
that.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. All right, our next one. Did I click the right one? Oh, yes, I did. Okay. Will there be any armor pieces that are not set-based? Do you have any items that will be added to the beta in that regard? We've kind of already gone over this a bit. But there's lots.
We kind of just answered this a lot.
Yep.
There are absolutely armor pieces that are not part of the set. There are, I want to say 2 for each slot, but don't quote me. I can't remember offhand. There's a lot of armor pieces that aren't set related. And then there's also a sort of jewelry, rings, weapons, offhands, all of those that are non-set related. And you guys get to play with them like next Tuesday. So you tell us how cool they are or not.
Definitely let us know.
I think a lot of them are awesome. A couple of them are like, yeah, it's neat, and then some of them are like, holy crap.
Right. Tuning will be coming.
Tuning is a thing.
We like tuning. All right, our next one. So this one's a bit of a mouthful. Blood-based skills are creating weird behavior, especially with the blood set. Vitality is being deprioritized. Players are trying to remove it from gear. The set doubling health feels pointless because it halves the potency of your regeneration skills while doubling the cost. Are there any plans to address this? Thank you, Wrecker Morrison.
There absolutely are. This is one of the things that we were talking about a lot this week that came up as a result of the PTR. You guys found some awesome builds. We didn't necessarily like the way in which you got to where you got, but we're totally okay with you being super strong. So the theme of the blood set really was meant to be that you double your health pool, which does double your costs, so the costs are bigger, but at the same time, you're like massively increasing your healing. And since all of the Necromancer's blood skills are percent of health themed, it means that the bigger your health pool, the more EHP or effective health you're getting every time you're using a heal skill. The thing that was being done recently was, again, the passive that I talked about previously, Blood is Power, was being used in a way, it was being used in a way that wasn't super great to effectively let the person or let people get to 100% uptime on their immunity, which meant the fact that their health bar was tiny was not a problem because you can't take damage. Other than spending your health, no big deal. And if you can't take damage, then you want that bar to be really tiny because then like 1 tick of regen and you're at 100%, which is enough health to pay for a few more spells. We are changing Blood is Power. It's just too good. It's still going to be themed around what it's themed now. It's just going to be done in a way that's not completely out of control. Additionally, like I said earlier, we are fixing the issue where the Bone Armor Rune of Invulnerability can refresh while it's still active, so that's going away. And then we're also tweaking, as of today, we decided some things about the blood set. We're going to tweak some things with the blood set that makes it so that your healing mechanics don't drain the stacks as quickly. It's just better. You just get more healing out of the stacks. So the idea is that the players have a lot of control over how high their stacks get, and if they get too high or they don't feel comfortable with like 80% of your health bar per spell cast, you can spend a little time healing, which will then bring the stacks down, and you kind of have this ebb and flow where you're deciding how much health you want to spend on your skills. The end result of all that, hopefully, is that when you cannot be immune 100% of the time, you do not want to have 5 health. Because if anything hits you, you die. And if that happens, your grift run is going to fail because you're going to die a lot, and it's just not the right thing to do. We definitely want the theme of the blood set to be about like having tons of health, healing for a whole lot, spending a lot of that health. We'll continue to make adjustments over the rest of the beta to try and bring it to that place.
Cool. I'm looking forward to seeing those changes.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, I am too. I hope we fixed it. I'm sure you guys will find something else completely broken that we'll have to talk about.
All right, Land of the Dead, Army of the Dead, and Simulacrum seem like really long cooldowns for very little impact. Even in the reanimation set, I find I'm not using Army of the Dead very much. What are your overall feelings concerning these skills?
Yeah, so I used to get this feedback a lot too. And to be fair, the first times that people gave me that feedback, I was like, well, you know, it's hard as a 2-minute skill. Like, I don't even know how good does it have to be worth using in Diablo.
For 2 minutes, yeah.
And as of the most recent beta patch, prior to that a few weeks ago, I had actually done a pass on all the 2-minute skills because I had just picked the wrong tuning point. I just made a mistake, like, oh yeah, they should be about this strong. And then the things I was comparing them to were like 45-second cooldowns, and my brain blanked, I guess, that day. But things like Army of the Dead now do substantially more damage. I think the base on Army of the Dead is like 14,000%, which then sets and items make stronger. Simulacrum, or no, Land of the Dead, we like doubled the duration on from 5 seconds to 10 seconds. There's also, it's really hard to act on that feedback because when we get that kind of feedback, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, they didn't literally kill everything on the screen when you pushed it. However, there's also things like Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac or CDR stacking. There's other item interactions and set interactions like the pet set, like dramatically reduces the cooldown of Army of the Dead. And we wanted to leave ourselves room to grow into those to the point where, like, yeah, Army of the Dead's really good if you're using the pet set. And in fact, some of the items we just made make like more than double how good Army of the Dead is going to be, for example, if you're doing that kind of build. So the goal is that you build into these things. They should feel really impactful. They should feel really powerful. But they're going to get better with items and legendaries and sets. So that was always kind of the goal.
Cool. Looking forward to playing around with that, too. That should be a lot of fun. I
Yeah,
spent
it's
a ton
like
of time.
a truck.
Yeah, I bet. All right, what has been the most challenging part about bringing the Necromancer class to Diablo 3? Thanks, Raichi.
No question, corpses. Corpses was the most challenging thing by far. So we had never really intended or planned on having a corpse gameplay mechanic in Diablo 3 from the start, and so we had to find a way to sort of, I'm going to say, shoehorn that into the Diablo 3 experience. And one of the big problems that I think is kind of obvious is that we made a decision early on that when monsters die, that we wanted them to fly around in awesome ways, and we weren't going to get rid of that in order to bring corpses back. So there was sort of the problem of, well, wait a minute, we need something reliably to stick around. There is server performance issues with having a bunch of new items on the screen. We've got challenges in terms of console because you've got 4-player co-op, right? Hey man, you just used my corpse. What's up with that? You know, and then not all problems can be solved with couch co-op justice, right? So those were big problems there. And then the biggest one probably of all was read and expectations around the corpses themselves. In that when it was very important at one point for you to single out an individual corpse, it meant that the corpse had to be the loudest thing visually on screen, and that was bad for a game that already has visual loudness issues. Yeah. So all those things were really big hurdles that we had to gradually take on one at a time and get to the place that we're at right now, which is that we feel like it works really well and doesn't feel like a thing that we shoehorned into the game. Yep.
Very cool.
No, nothing. I got nothing there.
Right.
Corpses, for
sure. Because revive is more just, it's been a lot of work.
We've talked about revive a lot more
Yeah.
as a challenge, and it's not really a challenge. It's a production challenge.
Right.
It's long. We're still not done. In fact, we expect to actually announce the end of revive at the upcoming BlizzCon. That's gonna go on for that long.
Ton of work.
It's amazing. We never think about like how many monsters we've added to the game, but
Right.
internally, it's like 1,100 something.
Yeah.
Like from a data standpoint, not necessarily visually, but so we've had to literally pour over every single one of those. That is a different kind of challenge, but
Right.
but it's one that is easily defeated by lots of people.
Yes. Or just lots of hours.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Many,
fine.
many hours. Did I grab the right one? No, I didn't. Hold on. Please hold. This is a live presentation. You can tell because of how much I'm messing up. All right. Will revive be able to raise a fallen ally in a party, even if only temporary? Thanks, Wargiver.
No. We had a long time ago in a like, wouldn't it be cool if land? We had talked about like, hey, what if reviving in not hardcore? What if like casting revive on your buddy's tombstone would just like auto revive him? It's cool. We may still do it if we find we have time left over, but we've just been so focused on getting so much other stuff done that I mean, no, we're not doing that. Maybe
Yeah.
it'd be cool, but
There's other higher priority
there's
things
nothing.
to do.
There's better questions to go.
Yeah.
So, and we're running low on time. So
Oh, are we? Wow, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We do have a whole bunch of questions more, so we're gonna start kind of powering through these ones.
All right, Crush
Where
it.
we can.
do it.
For the purposes of Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, do Skeleton Mages and Command Skeleton count as resource spending attacks? From Sakari.
To my knowledge, yes. If they do not, it's a bug, and please report it and we'll fix it.
Sounds good. Our next one comes from Seraphine. The bone armor focused set looks really interesting, but are you worried about its performance in fights against less than 10 enemies, considering this seems to be meant as the Necro's tanking set?
I mean, it is one of the sets that has survivability built into it. The reason they're asking is if you find yourself in a situation where you die, you're fighting a Rift Guardian, you have to rebuild your stacks one at a time. It definitely sucks. That said, I think it's okay to have strengths and weaknesses for different sets. I think if you have to play more cautiously or adapt the way you're playing as a consequence of the fact that this one does have a little more ramp-up time than the other sets, that's probably fine. We may change it. We could change it easily by like bringing down the stack count to some other number. But at the moment, we have no intention of changing it.
All right. Next one comes from Shadow Leader. Are you going to implement the Iron Golem from Diablo 2?
We're not going to implement the Iron Golem from Diablo 2, and I guess it's a little unfortunate, right? Because it's got a really clear fantasy. It's really cool. The item interaction is kind of interesting and tantalizing. It's something that you want to mess with, but it's also quite a big challenge to figure out how that was really going to work. Having players walk around constantly looking at items that they could turn into golems and taking their attention away from gameplay wasn't exactly a win. So from a fantasy standpoint, it was very interesting and there's something there, but it just wasn't something that fit into Diablo 3 gameplay in a way that we liked, so we chased other fantasies.
All right. Our next one is about skeleton mages. Did you consider creating skeleton mages as a permanent active passive pet? From Slubby.
Yeah, we did. In fact, we did that. You remember when we showed it at BlizzCon, what we did was our very first version of Command Skeletons actually had 3 mages. So it was like 7 melee and 3 mage. But ultimately, we found a better use opportunity for Skeleton Mage by pulling them out and making them their own skill. This created a different kind of playstyle opportunity in that, like, well, you know, it's nice to have a pet that you have to manage. In fact, the early days we got a lot of feedback, hey, I want to have a skill that lets me manage my army and build and maintain it, and we didn't really have that when all there was a golem and command skeletons that were permapets. So introducing this usage for mages gave us that kind of more active management feel for the players who want it.
I actually really enjoy that kind of active juggling style.
I like it too. Yeah.
Pretty fun. All right. Next question comes from Super Mage. Why is their hair white?
Artists? Well, it turns out there is like a super hardcore legitimate reason for this that is explained by lore, and I'm not going to answer it today because that is going to be answered in the future.
Yes.
By some other media that we are going to release. So yeah, if I tell you today,
it'd be a bit of a spoiler.
It would be a huge spoiler.
Yep.
So you'll have to wait for that.
You'll have to wait for that one. But, you know, teaser. Next one comes from Cult. Do you plan to fix the number tracker for pets? Sometimes skeletal mages are... Oh, wait, did we get this one? Did we ask this one already?
I don't think so.
No, okay. Oh, all right. Are not showing on the UI. Sorry about that. I thought we had gone over this.
No, all good. Yeah, you should have a tracker for your skeleton mage. You should have a tracker for your revive. Part of the reason you might not be seeing revive sometimes is that, again, the revive skill is still being finished. But yeah, definitely. You should have, this is how many skeleton mages, this is how many revives. That's information I need. It's on screen. If it's not there soon, we will make it there before we're done.
I got it confused with the other tracker question. That's what happened.
Yeah, that was about BPK Golem.
Yep. All right. Why dance around the concept and implementation of the classic Poison Nova skill with Death Nova and its runes instead of just putting Poison Nova into the game? From Texas DK Toast.
So yeah, I'm going to take the blame for that. But let me explain why that happened. So for some classes in the game, Wizard's a really good example. The damage type is the fantasy. So like when we talk about fire damage on the Wizard, all the things that she does with fire are absolutely integral with the fantasy of being a fire wielder, and same thing with frost and lightning. So it makes it seem like the damage type and the fantasy are intrinsically linked, but that's not always true. And so I'll give you an example of how that's not always true with the Witch Doctor. So when you use Acid Cloud, for instance, we wanted you to melt dudes, because that's what acid does, and if it doesn't do that, it doesn't feel very cool. But we didn't want to introduce a new damage type in the form of acid, because that's kind of bad for itemization to have a billion damage types. So what we did there is we said, all right, you can still melt dudes, it'll still look like acid, but under the hood, it's going to be poison. So how does this inform our decision around for doing this with the Necromancer? We didn't want to bring poison back as a fantasy for the Necromancer. We didn't think it was very deep in Diablo 2. We didn't like the idea of putting poison on a blade and stabbing guys one at a time. We didn't think that gameplay was fun. There really wasn't a lot of depth in the way it was presented in Diablo 2. We also just, I think from an art standpoint, didn't really want to have nuclear green stuff all over the Necromancer, because that nuclear green sort of poisony stuff, that's the Witch Doctor. He already does all that, and we want to push those classes apart. So instead, the themes that we did like were things like death and decay, and blighting is what we really ended up with. And then once we decided that we liked blight as a theme, then the next question was, what kind of damage type is it? And poison was the nearest thing that fit it, and that's how we got there. So it seems like we're dancing around it, but it's actually just that we are really chasing the fantasy first, and the damage type comes second.
And that's one of our design pillars, right? Is fantasy first.
Fantasy first, yeah.
Yep.
All right. We're getting close to the end here. We've got 3 more questions left, so we're almost done.
2 minutes.
In 2 minutes, let's see if we can do it. Okay, provided I can be
Lightning round, go.
confident about clicking things. All right, here we go. Why is the Pestilence Master Shroud the empowered Bone Spear set? How does that tie into the Necromancer's elements and themes from Wraith Darkon?
Yeah, the Pestilence Master's Shroud is it's a set that's all about Corpse Lance and Bone Spear. Really, when we got to that set, we were looking at it. We really wanted a set that was all about corpse skills in some fashion, and we also wanted to make sure we had a set that was sort of targeted at like range caster playstyle. So the fantasy more tied in for us for like pestilence, plague, corpses. Okay, corpse set. Also bone spear, because corpse skills plus casting is sort of just the vibe of that set that we wanted. That's it.
All right.
Because we said so. That's literally the reason.
All right. Next one was, what are the rewards you get by completing the Necro set dungeons, and how does that tie in with the other set dungeons? from yesterday. Okay, yeah, I guess I'm answering this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So the rewards that you get from the Necro set dungeons are 2 brand new pennants for the class. They are not related to the existing achievement for set dungeons at all. So if you've already completed the full 6 to get the super awesome one, the super awesome wings, that's not changing. You don't have to go and get the Necro in order to like keep that achievement, or you won't have to go and acquire the Necro to complete it if you haven't completed it yet. It's just additive. So you have these 2 new pennants that you can go and collect if you pick up the Necro pack.
Yep.
So. Oh, and that's the same question. Move on to the next one. And this is our last question. This one's a bit more fun. Nebulosis, Travis, and Julian. How do you plan on playing your necromancers? Melee or pets? Thanks, Norman's blog.
I am totally gonna build that the Saint set build that I was telling you all about. I don't know. I slapped it together. I was looking at like the items we made, and I'm like, all right, let me try this and this, and oh my god, if I curse them and then I stun them and then I expel, holy shit. So I'm definitely doing a Saint set on launch, assuming I get it before I get the other sets.
Right. So for me, it'll probably be the Plague set, because the moment that I put that set on and the Corpse Lances just started firing off, I was giggling like a little girl at my desk. Like, it was just...
I did too. I giggled like a little girl in playtest. I just pushed Devour and was like...
it's so satisfying.
Yeah, it really
so
is.
it's a really visceral set, and
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. So that's probably where I'm going.
I'm Pet Guy. My first class in D2 was Necromancer Pet builds, playing hardcore right out the gate. I really want to just kind of get through like the satisfying of my classic Diablo 2 Necromancer fantasy. So, pets.
Pets all the way.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this Q&A. I want to thank you all for tuning in today and hanging out with us, and for sending in your awesome questions. We got through lots of stuff today. I'm actually pretty impressed with all the things we talked about.
Yeah.
And all the different insights that, maybe folks don't necessarily get to see from time to time. So, thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your busy day. I know that you guys need to run back and hop right back into Necro stuff.
Build more revives. Yeah.
Build more revives,
yeah,
yes.
yep.
All the revives. So,
all the things.
Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in.
Thanks.
And we will see you guys next time. Bye.